So we now have our sides on. We've created this large sort of cross, and we're going to start constructing. So we're going to join the sides with the main front and back exteriors. So I'm going to start right at the bottom with this side piece. I'm bringing it up to match the piece that's next door to it, and I'm matching the bottom corners of both pieces, and I'm clipping them. And I always start from the bottom corner and work upwards. These do fit properly. They fit perfectly. You just need to make sure that you get the very corners in exactly where they should be, so that the corners are all matched, the top and the bottom, and then the rest will kind of just go together. Now you can either clip and stitch one side, or you can clip and stitch all of the sides. I'm going to just clip and stitch this one, and then I'll go and do the next one afterwards, just so I can show you. And I'll probably just do two, so otherwise you're going to just see me do the same thing over and over again. So having clipped it, I've now laid it down, and I'm going to stitch from the top down to the base, just because I find that's easier. And I'm using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Let's just move some of my rubbish. Stitched one side, and I'm going to match up the next side. So I've stitched one of these sides. I'm not taking the foam out just yet. I'm going to do this side, this other side of the same panel first. So I'm matching those bottom corners, matching the top corners. Okay, so that's all matched up, the bottom corners and the top corners, and then I'm going to stitch down from the top edge. Again, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just back stitching a couple of stitches at the beginning to secure my threads. So, pretty sure you can guess where we're going now. We're just going to rip out those basting stitches. They don't want to come out. Remove the foam. From the seam allowance on both sides. So let's just get rid of the basting stitches on this side as well. And you're going to repeat the same process for all four of these side seams. So I'll show you these two and then leave you be so that you can get on with it. So there we go, I've removed the foam from the seam allowance on both sides. And what I'm going to do is I am going to take my little iron. While it's warming up, I might just take the foam from the other ones, from the other one. And I'm going to press the seam allowance open now. That will very much depend on what you've made your exterior from. If you've made your exterior from something like a cork or faux leather, you cannot press the seam allowance open. Likewise, if you've used waxed canvas or laminated cotton or any of those kind of waterproof type fabrics, they don't do well with an iron. If you've used any kind of woven fabric, as long as it hasn't been treated with a waterproof finish, you should be able to iron to press the seams open. And believe me, it will make a huge difference to the way your finished bag looks. And I'll show you in a second. I'm going to leave one of these unpressed. So I'll press one open and I'll leave the other one unpressed, and you can see the difference. So you'll see why. Sometimes I think it's really easy to find yourself watching a tutorial and whoever's doing the tutorial says, yep, this is what we do. This is how you do it. But they don't explain why sometimes, and sometimes you don't actually need to know how you do it. You need to know why you're doing it, because if you understand why you're doing it, you'll see why it's important. So let's just take that out from there. Right, so let me press one of these seams open. Let's start by finger pressing just to, oh, and I'll turn the iron off. And I love this little Cricut Easy Press for doing this. It's just a cracking size iron to do this sort of thing. I hope that this will be visible, because this is quite a heavily patterned fabric. So you can see I've pressed this seam open, but this seam is just as it was. I've taken the foam out, but it's just as it was. So I'm just going to turn this corner out the right way. Let me just poke those bottom corners out. Right, now this seam here is the one that's been pressed. I think you can probably, it's difficult to actually, let me try doing the bag up, it might give it a bit more, it's a bit floppity because it's only got one side done. But I think you can see that that's a really nice, quite a sharp edge on there. This back one, which is the one that hasn't been pressed, it's kind of curling, the whole thing is curving. We haven't got a square, a sort of a nice 90-degree angle between the two, and that's the difference between a pressed seam and an unpressed seam. It does make a difference. It's even more important perversely, I think, on the lining, which shows really, because this is quite heavily patterned fabric, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't show too much. It annoys me, but that's just me. But in the lining, it really does show. So it's really important that you do it on the lining. So there we go. That's what how we're going to fit our end pieces. I'm going to come back and I'm going to press this one open that I left. And then I'm going to do the 2 seams on the other side of the bag. So we will have 4 lovely, beautiful matching seams. And I will come back to you and we'll start looking at our lining, because our exterior is now fully constructed. It was a lot quicker than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it? It's quite a lot of repetition in this, so you're doing the same, doing something and then you're doing it again and again and again. So let's just give that a press. Now, if you've used a really heavyweight fabric, so if you've used faux leather for the whole thing, you may find that you need to trim off a little bit of fabric from those corners, because they will get quite bulky. It's not as important when you've used woven. On this I've used woven. I've only used faux on the base, and it doesn't feel too bulky, but the extra thickness that you've got where you've pushed your seam allowance in gives the base of the bag structure. So you don't want to take anything out of there, but sometimes the corners just feel a little bit bulky. So if you need to trim them, but be careful you're not trimming into your stitching. So I'm just going to carry on and do my other 2 sides, and I'll see you back with the lining.